I still remember the sensation of the needle going into my arm for the first time. It wasn't the physical pain that marked me. It was looking to the side and seeing that bag filling with blood while I thought, how many notebooks is this worth? How many pens? How many colored pencils? My daughter was starting school in 2 weeks, and I didn't have a single reel to buy the supplies the teacher had asked for. I had no family to ask for help, no ex-husband to pay alimony, no bank account that wasn't overdrawn. What I did have was a functioning body, and I discovered that it could yield something. It was one morning in January that I saw the advertisement. I was in line at the health clinic with her in my arms, trying to get an appointment, when I overheard 2 women talking about a place that offered assistance to those who donated blood. It wasn't direct payment, that's prohibited, but there was a way. A transportation voucher here, a snack there, a disguised allowance. And for someone desperate, anything becomes a possibility. I wrote down the address on a crumpled piece of paper I had in my bag, the same one where I had written down the price of the school uniform, which I also didn't know how I was going to pay for. 3 days later, I was lying on that stretcher for the first time. The woman who drew my blood was kind, asking if I was okay, if I had eaten. I said yes. The truth is, I had skipped breakfast to save the bread for my daughter's snack. But I couldn't say that because if I did, they wouldn't let me donate. And if they didn't let me, I would leave there the same way I came in, with nothing. So I smiled, took a deep breath, and let them take what they needed. When they finished, I held the receipt as if it were gold. Because at that moment for me it was. I left there dizzy with shaky legs, but with a sharp certainty in my chest. If once I could buy 3 notebooks, I would come back as many times as necessary. And I did. I came back the following week. I came back the following month. I came back 7 times until my daughter's school supplies were complete. 7 times I lied on the form about when my last donation had been. 7 times I risked my health because her health, her future, her dignity of arriving at school with the right supplies, were more important than any dizziness I might feel. Nobody knew. Not my neighbor, not the school principal, not my own daughter. When she opened her new backpack, full of colored pencils, erasers, glue, scissors, notebooks with covers of her favorite character, her eyes lit up. She hugged me and said, "Thank you, Mom." And I hugged her back tightly, trying not to fall apart. Because I knew the real price of it all. I knew that each item had cost a piece of me. Literally. But you know what hurt the most that day? It wasn't the needle. It wasn't the dizziness. It was realizing that I had reached a point where my body was the only currency I had to exchange. And that being a single mother in this country meant exactly that. You transform yourself into everything you didn't want to be, just so your child doesn't have to go through what you went through. If you're still here listening to me, it's because somehow you know what it's like to make decisions that no one should have to make. So go ahead and like this video because stories like mine need to be told. Not to glorify suffering, but to show what single mothers face in silence. And comment below. Have you ever done something extreme for your child? Something that nobody knows about? Because sometimes we need to know that we're not alone in this madness. After that first donation, I thought I had found the solution. That I had finally discovered a way to survive without depending on anyone. But our bodies weren't made to be exploited like that. And it was the 3rd time that I felt that firsthand. I had woken up early as usual. My daughter was still asleep when I left home. I left her with the neighbor who looked after her for a few hours in exchange for me doing her laundry on the weekend. I took 2 buses to get to the donation center. I hadn't eaten anything besides half a stale loaf of bread with weak coffee because the money I had saved was to buy the rest of the supplies. I still needed the textbooks, and those were the most expensive. I got there, filled out the form, and lied again about when my last donation had been. The nurse looked at me and asked if I was okay. Said yes. Always said yes. But this time it was different. When the needle went in, when the blood started to flow, I felt something strange. A weakness that came from within, as if someone had unplugged a power source inside me. I tried to hide it. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I thought of my daughter, her smile, the books I was going to buy. But the dizziness came. Strong. The kind of dizziness that makes the world spin and leaves you without solid ground. When it was over, I slowly stood up. I took the receipt, thanked them and left. But as soon as I reached the hallway, my legs gave way. I held onto the wall to keep from falling. The floor felt like it was going to swallow me whole. Everything went blurry. I heard voices in the distance, someone asking if I needed help, but all I could think was, I can't faint here. If I faint, they won't let me go back. And if I don't go back, I won't get the money for the books. I dragged myself to the bathroom. I splashed water on my face. I drank water straight from the tap, desperate. I sat there on the cold floor of that public restroom for about 15 minutes, until my hands stopped trembling, until my vision returned to normal, until I could pretend everything was all right again. Because I couldn't show weakness. I couldn't let anyone suspect anything. I couldn't lose that source of income, however cruel it might be. When I got home, my daughter ran to hug me. She didn't realize I was pale. She didn't realize I was trembling inside. She just hugged me and showed me the drawing she had made. A mother and daughter holding hands, with a huge sun in the sky. I looked at that drawing and cried. I cried secretly in the bathroom after she fell asleep. I cried because I knew I would have to go back there. That I would have to do it all again. Because a mother's love doesn't give you a choice. Pushes you forward even when your body is begging you to stop. And it was there that night, staring at the ceiling while my daughter slept beside me, that I made a decision. I was going to endure it. I was going to endure as many dizzy spells as necessary. As many lies as I needed to tell. As many times as my body wanted to give up. 'Cause she deserved those books. She deserved to start school without shame, without being the only one without school supplies. And if the price of that was me gradually emptying myself, then so be it. But what I didn't know at that moment is that our bodies demand payment. And they demand it heavily. I thought I could control everything. That if I took a deep breath, ate something beforehand, drank plenty of water, my body would hold up. But by the 5th donation, I realized it wasn't a matter of willpower anymore. It was a matter of survival. I started feeling strange things. A fatigue that wouldn't go away, even when I managed to sleep a few hours. A tiredness that weighed on my bones, that made every movement feel like a mountain. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, sweating profusely, without understanding what was happening. My skin became pale yellowish. My nails brittle. My hair was falling out more than usual. But I couldn't go to the doctor. I didn't have the money for a consultation, and more importantly, I was afraid of what he would say. Afraid he would find out what I was doing and judge me. Or worse, that he would forbid me from continuing. My neighbor was the first to notice. She looked at me one day and said, "Are you okay? You look terrible." I forced a smile and made up an excuse that I was just tired, that I hadn't slept well. She insisted, saying I looked anemic, that I should take a tonic, eat liver, those things everyone talks about but nobody knows if they really work. I thanked her and changed the subject. Because if she knew the truth, she would call me crazy. And maybe she would be right. But the books hadn't all been bought yet. 2 were still missing. And school was starting in less than a week. I couldn't stop now. I couldn't give up when it was so close. So I went back there for the 6th time. This time I ate an egg before leaving. It was the only egg I had in the fridge, but I ate it because I knew I needed something in my stomach. I drank water. Lots of water. I prayed softly on the bus. I asked God to give me strength just one more time. Just this one more. When the needle went in, I felt a different kind of pain. It wasn't just the discomfort of the prick. It was a deep pain, as if my body was screaming, "Stop." As if every cell in my body was begging me to stop. But I didn't stop. I closed my eyes, bit my lip, and let the blood flow. When it was over, I stood up slowly, very slowly. I grabbed the receipt and left before anyone noticed I was about to collapse. I got home, exchanged the receipt for the money the middleman paid. Always less than it was worth, but it was all I had, and went straight to the stationery store. I bought the last 2 books. I held them in my hands as if they were trophies. 'Cause they were. They were proof that I had succeeded. That I had won. That my daughter was going to start school with everything she needed. And nobody would know the real price of it. When I got home and put the books on the table, my daughter jumped for joy. She picked up each one, leafed through them, smiled in that way only children know how to smile. And I smiled back. But inside I was empty. Literally empty. My body had given all it could. And I knew I had gone too far. I knew I had done something dangerous. But I also knew I would do it all again if necessary. Because that's what being a single mother is. It's emptying yourself to fill the other person. It's destroying yourself to build someone else. It's becoming a shadow so that your child can be the light. School started on a Monday. My daughter woke up excited, put on the uniform I'd gotten at a thrift store, and packed her backpack with all that school supplies that had cost me 7 pieces. She was radiant. I was exhausted. I took her to the gate, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I'd pick her up at the end of class. She ran inside without looking back. And I stood there, holding the gate, feeling my legs weaken. The dizziness had returned. Stronger. More persistent. But I couldn't fall there in front of the school, in front of the other mothers. I couldn't make a fool of myself like that. I took a deep breath, forced myself to walk to the bus stop and sat down. When the bus arrived, I could barely get on. The driver looked at me with that face of someone who knows something's wrong, but didn't say anything. I sat in the first seat, rested my head against the window, and closed my eyes. Everything was spinning. The whole world was spinning. I got off 2 stops before my job. I worked at a diner, cleaning tables, washing dishes, because I needed air. I needed to stop. But I couldn't. If I missed work, I'd lose the day's pay. And losing the day's pay meant not having money for rice for the week. I arrived at work staggering. My boss looked at me and asked if I was sick. I said no, that it was just tiredness. She didn't believe me, but she didn't insist either. She sent me to the kitchen to wash the dishes. And it was there, with my hands in that hot water full of detergent, that I felt it. A weakness so violent that my body simply shut down. My knees gave way. Fell. I hit my head on the sink. I heard shouts in the distance. And I passed out. When I woke up, I was on the floor, with my boss fanning me with a dish towel and a coworker trying to give me water. They had called emergency services, but I begged them not to. Begged. Because an ambulance cost money. A hospital was a debt. And I couldn't afford either. I convinced them it was just a minor illness, that I hadn't had my coffee properly. I lied again. Always lying. My boss sent me home. Said I wasn't fit to work. And she was right. But all I could think was, there goes today's pay. I went home by bus, leaning on the window frame to avoid falling again. When I got home, before picking up my daughter, I threw myself on the bed and cried. Cried from anger. From exhaustion. From shame. Because my body had given up on me. Because I had made it give up. Because I had donated blood 7 times in less than 3 months, when the recommendation was a maximum of 3 times a year. Because I had turned my health into a bargaining chip. And now I was paying the price. But you know what destroyed me the most at that moment? It was looking at the clock and remembering that, in 2 hours, I needed to be up again. Because my daughter was leaving school. And she couldn't see me like that. She couldn't know that her mother had fallen apart. So I got up, washed my face, forced a smile in the mirror, and went to get her. And when she saw me, she ran to me shouting, "Mom, Mom," telling me everything about her first day of school. And I hugged her. I hugged her with the strength I didn't have. Because she was the reason I was still standing. Even though I wasn't. If you've ever been through this, pushing yourself beyond your limits because someone depended on you, comment below. Sometimes we need to know we're not alone in this silent pain. That there are other mothers breaking down inside but holding on tight on the outside. Took 3 weeks for my body to start recovering. 3 weeks in which I did everything automatically. I woke up, took my daughter to school, went to work, came back, picked her up, cooked, bathed her, put her to bed. And then I collapsed. The fatigue was constant, as if I were carrying an invisible weight on my back all the time. But I couldn't stop. Single mothers don't get sick leave from life. It was on a Friday afternoon that everything changed. My daughter had come home from school excited, with a piece of paper in her hand. It was an assignment her teacher had given her, to draw the most important person in her life and write why. She handed me the paper with that wide smile, waiting for my reaction. I looked. It was a drawing of me, hair tied back, simple clothes, holding hands with her. And underneath, in the crooked handwriting of a child still learning to write, it said, "My mother is a heroine because she does everything for me." Froze. I held that piece of paper and felt such a strong lump in my throat that I could barely breathe. Heroine. She had called me a heroine. And all I could think was, if you knew what I did, if you knew I sold my own blood to give you a decent life, would you still call me a heroine? Or would you be ashamed of me? But she didn't know. And she never would. Because that's exactly what a mother's role is, to carry alone the weight of impossible choices so that her children can live lightly. I hugged her that afternoon. I hugged her with a strength I didn't even know I still had. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't cry from pain. I cried from relief. Because even destroyed, even empty, I had succeeded. My daughter hadn't been embarrassed at school. She had arrived on the first day with everything she needed. And now she saw me as a heroine. I kept that drawing as if it were gold. I put it on the refrigerator, held in place with a magnet I'd gotten from a supermarket advertisement. And every time I passed through the kitchen, every time the fatigue returned, every time I felt like giving up, I looked at that drawing. And I remembered. I remembered why I had done all that. I remembered why I had gone beyond the limit. I remembered that a mother's love isn't beautiful, but it's real. It's raw. It's desperate. And it's the strongest thing in the world. That night, after she fell asleep, I looked at myself in the mirror. My skin was still pale. I was still tired. But there was something different in my eyes. A spark I thought had died. It was pride. Pride in having survived. Pride in having done the impossible. Pride in being someone's hero, even if no one else knew about the battle I had fought. And it was there, in that silence of the early morning, that I promised myself, never again. Never again would I put myself at risk like that. Because she needed me alive, whole, present. Not a dead heroine, but a mother who breathes, who smiles, who makes mistakes, who gets tired, but who keeps going. Always. 2 months after that fainting spell, I finally managed to save 50 reis. 50 reis that weren't for the electricity bill, or groceries, or medicine. They were mine. It was the first time since becoming a single mother that I had money that didn't need to be turned into something else. Seems ridiculous to celebrate 50 reis. But for someone who lived selling their own blood, 50 reis saved was revolutionary. I started paying attention to small things that I hadn't even noticed before. My neighbor taught me how to make homemade soap with used oil, and that saved me about 15 reis a month. I discovered that, at the end of the market, they sold cheaper vegetables, sometimes even giving them away for free instead of throwing them away. I learned to mend my daughter's clothes instead of buying new ones. Every real saved was a brick I laid in building a less suffocating life. My body also started to improve. The color returned to my face. The tiredness decreased. I still woke up tired, but it was normal tiredness, like someone who works and takes care of children alone. It wasn't that tiredness of someone who was dying inside anymore. I started eating better when there was leftover food. I bought an inexpensive iron supplement at the pharmacy. Nothing luxurious, nothing expensive. But it was self-care. And I had forgotten what it meant to take care of myself. One afternoon, my daughter came home from school with a note from her teacher. My heart froze. I thought it was a complaint that she had misbehaved, that I was going to have to solve yet another problem. But when I opened it, it was something else. The teacher said that my daughter was one of the best students in the class. That she was dedicated, polite, and had an impeccable notebook. She ended by saying, "Congratulations on the work you are doing. The love and care this child receives at home is evident." I read it 3 times. I sat on the edge of the bed and read it again. Because for the first time someone had recognized it. Not the suffering, not the struggle, but the result. My daughter was okay. She was developing. She was happy. And that was worth every drop of blood I had donated. Every dizzy spell. every near-fainting spell, every lie I had told to survive. That night, after putting her to bed, I did something I hadn't done in months. I sat by the window and breathed. Just breathed. I looked at the sky, at the few stars visible in the middle of the city, and allowed something akin to peace to enter my chest. It wasn't happiness yet, but it was relief. It was the feeling that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. And it was there, in that moment of silence, that I understood something. Small victories matter. They matter a lot. Because when you live in chaos, any moment of calm is a miracle. Any rail saved is an achievement. Any note from a teacher praising your child is confirmation that you didn't fail, that you succeeded, that you continue to succeed. Life began to settle into a routine. School, work, home, daughter, sleep, wake up, repeat. Everything worked. Everything was in its place. But one night, after putting my daughter to bed, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize who was there. I wasn't the woman I had been before becoming a mother. But I wasn't just a mother either. There was something in between. Something forgotten. Something I had left behind when the struggle for survival became the only priority. It had been more than 2 years since I'd gone out. Not to have fun. Not to talk to anyone about anything other than bills or children. It had been 2 years since I'd dressed up for anything that wasn't work. I didn't wear lipstick. I didn't style my hair nicely. I didn't wear that blouse I liked. Why? For whom? I had forgotten that there was a woman beneath the mother. One afternoon, my neighbor invited me over for coffee. Simple thing. But in my mind it seemed impossible. Who was going to look after my daughter? What if she woke up and I wasn't home? What if something happened? But my neighbor insisted. She said her daughter would play with mine, that it would only be an hour, that I needed to breathe. And for the first time I let her. We sat at her table, with reheated coffee and cornstarch cookies. And she asked me, "And you? How are you?" Froze. Nobody ever asked me that. People asked about my daughter, my work, my bills. But about me. About the woman I was. Nobody asked. Not even I asked myself. I started to answer automatically. "Oh, I'm fine, thank God." But she looked me in the eyes and repeated, "No. How are you really?" And then I broke down. I cried there at my neighbor's table, with the trembling coffee cup in my hand. I cried and said things I didn't even know I had bottled up inside. I said I was tired, that I felt alone, that sometimes I was angry at having to be strong all the time, that I missed being touched, being heard, being seen as a woman and not just as a warrior mother, that I was afraid of becoming just that, a function, a machine for caring, working, and solving problems. She held my hand and said something that has stayed with me to this day. You can't disappear completely. If you vanish, who will show your daughter that women also exist? That she can be a mother and still be herself? And that hit me right on the mark. Because I didn't want my daughter to grow up thinking that every mother's destiny was to fade away. That maternal love was synonymous with self-destruction. I came home that afternoon with something different inside me. A restlessness. Calling. It wasn't about finding a boyfriend. It wasn't about going out to parties. It was about remembering that I still existed. That I had a name. That I had desires. That I had the right to occupy space. Even being a single mother, even being tired, even having no time for anything. I started small. I started wearing lipstick again. That's all. An old lipstick I had at the bottom of a drawer. And every time I looked at myself in the mirror with it on, I remembered. I'm still here. Wearing lipstick didn't pay the bills. I knew that. But it reminded me that I was still alive. And it was that small reminder that made me want more. Not more things. More possibilities. More future. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life just reacting, just putting out fires. I wanted to plan. I started simple. I took an old notebook and divided it into 3 columns. What comes in, what goes out, what's left over. It seemed obvious, but I'd never done it before. I'd always lived paycheck to paycheck. Money would come in, I'd spend it, it would run out, I'd wait for the next one. But when I put it on paper, I saw the hole. I saw where the money was leaking. I saw that I was paying absurd interest on overdue bills. I saw that I was buying small things that added up to an absurd amount at the end of the month. I made cutbacks. I cancelled the piped gas and went back to bottled gas, which was cheaper. I switched brands of laundry detergent. I stopped buying box juice and went back to making real fruit juice, which yielded more. It seems silly, but at the end of the month, I had 20 or 30 reis more left over. And I didn't spend those 20 reis. Save them. I opened a savings account. Nothing fancy, just a digital account that didn't charge fees. And every month on payday I transferred something there. Sometimes it was 10 reis. Sometimes it was 5. The amount didn't matter. What mattered was the gesture. What mattered was creating the habit of saving, of thinking about tomorrow, of escaping that eternal despair of living only for today. 3 months later I had 200 reis saved. 200 reis that nobody knew existed. 200 reis that weren't for emergencies, weren't for overdue bills. They were for building. And for the first time I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that maybe one day I could leave that diner. That I could take a course. That I could give my daughter a better life without destroying myself in the process. I spoke with the owner of the snack bar. I asked if she knew of any free skills training courses. She told me about a city program that offered courses for waiters, cooks, and pastry chefs. Got the address. I went there on Saturday, taking my daughter with me. I signed up for the pastry chef course. I've always enjoyed baking cakes, but I never thought it could turn into income. The course was 3 months long on Saturday mornings. Fit into my routine. Fit into my future dreams. When I started the classes I felt strange. I was there among other women, learning how to make gourmet brigadeiro, cake in a jar decorations. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing myself. I was building a way out. I was showing myself and my daughter that we could do more. That life didn't have to be just about enduring. That it was possible to plan, to grow, to become another version of ourselves. At the end of the first class, the teacher asked why we were there. Each woman shared a bit of her story. When it was my turn, I said, "I'm here because I'm tired of living in fear. I want to build something that's mine. Something that no one can take away from me." And all the women in that room understood. Because they were all there for the same reason. They were all tired of just surviving. If you're subscribing to the channel now, do it. Because you need to follow the rest of this story. You need to see that it's possible to rise from the bottom. That you can start over even when everything seems impossible. And if you've been here for a while, leave a like. 'Cause you know these stories need to reach more people. I was coming back from class with my daughter beside me when I saw him, standing in front of the gate of our house. Her father. The man who had disappeared 3 years ago without looking back. The man who had never sent a single penny in child support, never called to find out if his daughter was alive or dead. And there he was, leaning against the wall, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My body froze. I gripped my daughter's hand tighter. She didn't remember him. She was only 2 years old when he left. To her, he was just an old photo she sometimes asked about, and I would answer with half-truths. "It's your father, but he doesn't live with us." I never spoke ill of him to her. I never poisoned his image. But I also never lied saying he was a hero. He simply didn't exist in our daily lives. Until that day. He saw me and smiled. As if he had the right. As if he hadn't left me pregnant, alone, penniless, without support. As if he hadn't turned me into the woman who had to sell her own blood to buy school supplies. He came towards us, and I instinctively put my daughter behind me. He noticed and stopped. He raised his hands as if to say, "Calm down, I didn't come to cause trouble." But his presence was already the problem. He said he had changed. That he was working, that he was doing well financially now. That he wanted to meet his daughter. That he wanted to help. Help. The most ridiculous word I had heard in years. Help now. After 3 years. After I had already done everything alone. After she had already learned to walk, to talk, to read without him. After I had almost died trying to give her dignity. He sensed my anger. And then came the manipulation. He said I couldn't prevent his right to see his daughter, that he could go to court and demand joint custody, that it wasn't fair for me to keep the child away from her father, and I felt such intense anger that I was afraid of myself. 'Cause he was technically right. He had rights. But where were those rights when she was born? When she had a high fever and I spent the night alone in the emergency room? When there was a food shortage? When I fainted from donating so much blood? I took a deep breath. I looked at him and said, "You're not going to just walk into her life like that suddenly. You abandoned her. And now you need to prove you've really changed. If you really want to get to know her, we'll do it the right way. With boundaries. With respect. And on her time, not yours." He tried to argue, but I wouldn't let him. I picked up my daughter, went inside, and locked the door. My daughter asked who that man was. And for the first time I had to be honest in a way that hurt. I told her he was her father. That he had left when she was a baby, but that now he wanted to come back. She looked at me with those huge eyes and asked, "And you're going to let him?" And I answered the only thing I could. "I'll do what's best for you. Always." She hugged my neck and said, "Okay then. Trust you, Mom." That night after she fell asleep, I cried. I cried from anger, from fear, from emotional exhaustion. Because I knew that this was only the beginning. That he would insist. That he might even take me to court. And that I would have to deal with the ghost of the past wanting to become the present. But one thing I was sure of. He wasn't going to enter her life the way he wanted. Not after everything I had done to protect her from his absence. The following weeks were the most emotionally difficult since he left. He started showing up. Not every day, but often enough to keep me constantly on edge. He would text wanting to meet his daughter. He said he had bought her a present, that I wanted to take her to the park. And each message was like a knife to the chest. Because I knew what I had to do. I knew that technically he had the right to know his daughter. I knew that holding a grudge wouldn't change the past. But knowing that didn't make it any easier. Because how could I simply let someone who had destroyed me into her life? Someone who had abandoned me when I needed him most? How could I trust that he wouldn't do the same to her? I sought help. I went to a public defender's office and spoke with a lawyer. She explained that I needed to establish clear boundaries. That if he wanted to see his daughter, it would have to be supervised at first. That he couldn't just show up whenever he wanted. That I had the right to demand regularity, commitment, and even back child support payments. She said something that stuck with me. Forgiving doesn't mean letting him walk all over you again. You can open the door, but you choose how wide it is. I arranged a meeting with him. Just the two of us without my daughter. In a public square during the day with people around. I wasn't going to take any risks. I looked him in the eyes and told him everything I had swallowed for 3 years. I said he had destroyed me. That I had gone hungry, that I had sold my blood, that I had almost died. That my daughter had grown up without a father and that it wasn't my fault, it was his. He tried to justify himself. He said he was young, that he had been scared, that he wasn't prepared. And I cut him off. I wasn't prepared either. I was young too. But I stayed. That's the difference between us. He fell silent. Perhaps for the first time in his life he had truly listened. And then I laid out the rules. If he wanted to meet his daughter, it would be my way. Short meetings, always with me nearby. No promises he couldn't keep. No expensive gifts to compensate for his absence. No trying to be the fun dad while I continued being the mom who solves everything. And most importantly, no disappearing again. Because if he vanished one more time, I wasn't going to give him a third chance. And this time I was going to take legal action to ensure he could never hurt my daughter again. He agreed. I don't know if he truly agreed or because he had no choice. But he agreed. And that's where something I never imagined I'd have to face began. Living with the man I had hated most in recent years. The first meeting was tense. I took my daughter to a park. He arrived with a teddy bear. She looked at him curiously, but hid behind me. I crouched down, looked into her eyes and said, "This is your father. He wants to meet you. But if you don't want to, that's okay. You choose." And for the first time I let her decide. She looked at him, looked at me, and slowly accepted the teddy bear. I sat there on the park bench, watching him try to talk to her, watching her respond shyly. And inside me, a war raged. Anger, fear, sadness, but also relief. Because maybe, just maybe, she could have something I never had. The chance to know her father. Even if late, even if imperfect, but with protection, with boundaries, and with the certainty that, if he failed again, she had a mother who would never fail her. Comment below if you've ever had to deal with this. With the return of someone who hurt you. With the struggle between forgiving and protecting. Because we need to talk about these pains that no one teaches us how to deal with. It was 3 months after our first meeting that my daughter asked the question I most feared. We were walking home from school. She was eating cookies from her backpack when she stopped, looked at me and said, "Mom, why didn't my dad stay with us when I was a baby?" My heart stopped. I had rehearsed this conversation in my head 1,000 times. I had thought of every possible answer, but none seemed right. How did I explain to a 6-year-old that her father had run away? That he had chosen not to stay? That he had left me alone, pregnant, without support? Without making her feel rejected? Without making her feel guilty? I took a deep breath. I knelt down to her level, held her little hands, and told her the truth. Not the whole truth, but the truth she could understand. When you were born, your father was very scared. He was young, unprepared, and didn't know how to be a father. So he left. And that wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault. It was his choice. And today he's back because he wants to try again. But you need to know something very important. You have always been loved. From the very first second. By me. She was quiet for a while, processing. And then she asked, "Didn't he love me when I was a baby?" And that broke my heart into pieces. Because the honest answer was, I don't know. Maybe he loved in his own way. Maybe he didn't know how to love. Maybe his love was cowardly, small, insufficient. But I couldn't tell her that. Then I said, I think he loved you, but he didn't know how to show it. Sometimes adults make the wrong choices even when they love. And what matters now is that you have a mother who will never abandon you. And if one day he disappoints you again, you will still have me. Always. She hugged my neck. And cried. She cried in a way I had never seen her cry before. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't physical hurt. It was the pain of understanding for the first time that not every father stays. That not every family is like the families of her school friends. I took her home, made her favorite snack, put on a cartoon. But she was different. Quieter. More thoughtful. And that night when I went to put her to bed, she asked me one more thing. Mom, if he leaves again, will you be sad? And I answered the only thing I could. I'll be angry. But I won't be alone. 'Cause I have you. And you have me. And together we are stronger than any abandonment. She slept embraced with me that night. And I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how being a single mother was also this. Having to explain the inexplicable. Having to heal wounds you didn't cause. Having to be strong when all you wanted was to crumble along with her. Because the father could come and go as he pleased. But me. I was the constant. I was the ground. I was the certainty. And in that silence of the early morning, I promised myself once again. No matter what happened, she would know that she was loved. Completely. Unconditionally. Without abandonment. Because if there was one thing I could give her that her father never gave her, it was presence. And presence is worth more than any broken promise. Today, looking back, I see the woman I was 4 years ago. The one who held a 2-month-old baby while the door slammed shut. The one who sold her own blood 7 times to buy school supplies. The one who almost died from emptying herself so much. And I wish I could go back in time just to tell her one thing. You will succeed. It will hurt, it will be unfair, but you will succeed. I'm not the same person. My body has recovered. My bank account isn't huge yet, but it has a breather that didn't exist before. I finished my pastry chef course and now I sell cakes and sweets on weekends. It's not much, but it's mine. It's something I built with hands that once trembled with weakness. The extra money allowed me to leave the snack bar and work part-time at a bakery, where the owner respects me and pays me on time. My daughter is 7 years old now. She still sees her father occasionally. He hasn't become the father I wanted him to be, but he's more present than I expected. And most importantly, she knows that if he fails her, she has a mother who will never fail her. She looks at me with that pride a child has when they think their mother can do everything. And I can't do everything, but I can be present, and sometimes that's all there is. If you're listening and you're a single mother, I want to tell you something no one told me when I needed it most. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be a warrior all the time. You can cry, you can be angry, you can feel like you can't take it anymore. And even then, you'll still be a good mother. Because a good mother isn't the one who never falls. It's the one who gets back up. It's the one who makes mistakes, but learns from them. It's the one who sacrifices herself, but doesn't disappear. Being a single mother isn't about romanticizing suffering. It's not about being proud of almost dying. It's about transforming pain into strength. It's about looking at what you've been through and deciding that it won't break you. It will rebuild you in a different way. Stronger, more aware, more yourself. I still have difficult days. I still wake up tired. I still look at the bill and take a deep breath. But the difference is that now I know I can. I've been through the worst. I've sold my blood. I've fainted. I've almost given up. And I'm here. Whole, alive, present. And my daughter doesn't remember a single day when love was lacking. So, if you've made it this far to the end of this story, I want to ask you one thing. Leave a like. Comment below with your story or just an I understand. Because sometimes we just need to know we're not alone. Subscribe to the channel, because there are many other real stories of mothers who survived the impossible. And if you know any single mothers who need to hear this, share this video with them. Because we save each other when we share the pain and multiply the strength. Being a single mother is a sacrifice, but it's also a rebirth. And I was reborn. As many times as necessary, I will continue to be reborn. Because my daughter deserves a living mother. And I deserve a life worth living. And you deserve that too. Never forget that.